Alright guys, and for the herringbone double crochet stitch, we can start with any number, which means that it doesn't matter if you start with the even or odd number of foundation chain. So let's make whatever the pattern says or whatever you'd like for practicing this stitch. So this is my foundation chain, and now let's start with the first row. So because it's the herringbone stitch in double crochet, so for the double crochet I always skipped 2 chains and then insert my hook into the third chain from the hook. We don't count the loop on our hook as a chain, but whatever is below. I know that some crocheters, they skipped 3 chains for the double crochet, but I do only 2 because I feel like that the edge of the project is made more cleaner or more like a nicer. So this is like my way, so that's why we insert the hook into the third chain from the hook. Before we insert the hook, we have to do yarn over. And now other thing is that I also like to insert the hook into the bump. So when you see the foundation chain, so you can see the V shapes, and usually the crocheters, what they do, they insert the hook into that V shape and they have 2 loops above. I like to do it in the back of it. So when I just turn the foundation chain, you can see the bumps behind. So one bump is 1 chain. So I insert the hook over there. So you do whatever you'd like, whatever you prefer. It's not a mistake. It's nothing. There's no wrong or right. It's definitely just about your preference. So now we do yarn over and insert the hook into the third chain from the hook. I do it into this bump. We do yarn over and pull up the loop. And now directly we pull up the loop with the same loop through the first loop. So it's basically like a slip stitch kind of way. Then we do yarn over, pull up the loop through the first loop only, and then yarn over, pull up the loop through all 2 loops. So this is our last step of the herringbone stitch in double crochet. So now let's show you again. So we do yarn over, insert the hook into the next chain. You do yarn over and pull up the loop through the chain and through the first loop. Then yarn over, pull up the loop through the first loop only, and yarn over, pull up the loop through like both loops. This is our last step. This is herringbone stitch. So I think it's quite easy. It's a little different than the double crochet, but it's definitely very like similar to it, unless like the first few steps or the couple steps. So now we do yarn over, insert the hook into the next chain, yarn over, pull up the loop, and with the same loop we pull up the loop through the first loop, yarn over, pull up the loop through the first loop, and yarn over, pull up the loop through both loops. So this is your herringbone stitch. So it is actually going a little bit diagonally, but then on our way back of the second row, it's kind of like even out, and then you will see the texture. So now let's just continue until the end of the row, and then I'll show you how to do the second one, but it's quite easy because this is kind of simple stitch. So now I'll show you a couple times. So we do yarn over, insert the hook into the next chain, yarn over, pull up the loop, and with the same loop we pull through the first loop like right away. Then yarn over, pull up the loop through the first loop, yarn over, pull up the loop through both loops. So this is our herringbone stitch in double crochet, and this is what you repeat until the end of the row. Alright, so this is my first row and it looks something like this. It has really similar like a texture as the double crochet, but once you make more rows, then you can see the texture is actually a little bit different. So now we are at the end of the row, and what we do chain 2. That counts as a first double crochet for the next row, and then we turn the project as a book page. And now we continue with the herringbone stitch as exactly the same way as I showed you before. So we do yarn over, insert the hook into the next stitch, not into the first one, because those two chains count as a first stitch. So that's why we insert the hook into the next one, basically of the second stitch, like from the previous row. So now let's do the herringbone stitch in double crochet. We do yarn over, pull up the loop. With the same loop, we pull through the first loop, yarn over, pull up the loop through the first loop, yarn over, pull up the loop through 2 loops. So we have 2 stitches now of the second row. So now let's just continue exactly the same way with the herringbone stitch in double crochet. And once I'm gonna make a little bit more rows, I will show you the texture, how it looks. And also actually counting rows is pretty it's pretty obvious, but I'll show you that as well. So I hope that it makes sense. If not, you can always comment under this video. You can always ask me, contact me, so I'll help you. And you can always come back to the beginning of this video so you can see the steps again and a little bit slower. So this is it so far, and I'll be back once I'm done. Alright guys, so this is the texture of the herringbone stitch in double crochet. I love this stitch. I feel like it's kind of like a little upgrade of the double crochet look. So because it's very similar the stitch, but still there's a little detail that it looks differently. Feel free to leave a comment. What would you like to make out of this stitch? I'm very curious. And if you have any other feedback or anything, just please feel free to do so. Any likes, share, comments, I really appreciate any support of my work. And yeah, so that's everything. Thank you so much for watching, and happy crocheting.